Okay, welcome everybody. We have part two of the presentation of developments in Syria. So just in the past few days, the IDF has commenced a supposed kind of intervention crossing into the buffer zone that was agreed upon with the Syrian Arab Army after the Yom Kippur War in 1973, I believe. They have pushed, if we zoom in the map a little bit, to the southwest, towards Golan Heights, and if we zoom in a little more, we can see that the IDF has begun here and a bit north towards Damascus, creating an expanded buffer zone. However, it straddles along the Lebanese border, and they have taken control of some towns in the area, as well as commencing a major bombardment throughout Syria at different former Syrian Arab Army military bases, airfields, etc. This is a bit of an interesting development, considering that it was not even 24 hours into the new regime's tenure that this had began, and we have not really seen a response from the new regime as far as what they want to do about this, and there's been mixed messaging from the IDF as far as their views towards this new regime. However, it essentially goes along the lines of, if you in any way assist Iran, we will immediately bomb you. If we zoom out, so go get the map real quick, to the rest of the country, there are other developments going on, particularly in northern Syria, where we have here in yellow is the SDF, which is primarily a mix of Kurdish and Arab fighters. The SDF is short for Syrian Democratic Forces. And over here we have the rebel forces, but specifically we have Turkey, and we have the SNA, which is the Turkish-backed militias, who are beginning to fight Kurdish fighters between this area and an area called Manbij. Apologies if I butchered that pronunciation, as well as down here in a different city called Deir ez-Zor. I could also be very much mispronouncing that. And there's been major bombardments along this. It's an interesting development because American forces are inside this area and are allies with the Syrian Democratic Forces. However, with fighting between certain factions of the rebel forces and the SDF, it creates a little bit of a tenuous situation. And we also have Russian forces going through SDF territory who are trapped there, creating a dilemma for the Russians as well. We are seeing that the vanguard of the group of rebel factions, the HTS, is trying to, while they are Salafist Islamist, appear to be the most moderate faction of every faction here, like I said in the last presentation, and they have already appointed a new prime minister. Or interim prime minister, which I cannot remember his name right now, but he was previously a major politician part of governing Idlib province, and he is supposed to be there until March, until the new government is able to come in. So this is just a transitional period to see what is happening. And they're trying to establish some form of order in the country as of right now, and we're essentially just trying to wait and see what kind of government this will be. Previously, as I said previously, HTS has connections to jihadist groups such as the Al-Qaeda. However, some of those ties have been severed, and their rhetoric is a lot more moderate than what you'd see from some of those other groups. So again, we just continue to try and wait and see what is to happen. We also see one of the bigger developments is north of Damascus. There is a prison called Syria prison. There have been hundreds of thousands of political prisoners that were arrested and put in there over the past decade or so, since the Civil War began. The prison was originally designed by an ex-SS officer, and there are records purporting up to 29,000 prisoners having been executed at the prison, as well as undiscovered lower levels of the prison that have not been discovered, in which prisoners may still be alive down there. And it is quite horrific, some of the discoveries that are being found. There have been videos of torture from the guards' cell phones, as well as different ways of disposing of the bodies, such as a crematorium being found, as well as things such as acid being used to dispose of bodies. So the numbers could be even significantly higher. And this is not just at Syria prison, it is throughout the country. as we discover more and more about what went on with the Assad regime. And finally, much of the weaponry, such as chemical weaponry, does appear to have been destroyed in IDF strikes in order to prevent, accordingly to the IDF, in order to prevent unsavory groups from coming into hold of those weapons. So again, we just have to wait and see. There's a lot of developments happening as we go. But yeah, it's a little bit of a confusing situation, and we're hoping that Syria ends up becoming a lot more stable because of this, but because of foreign actors, it is not so clear that is what will happen. Anyways, for today, that's all I have, so thank you very much.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
First of all, do you see any potential parallels between what's happening right now in Syria or what could potentially be happening in the Afghan civil war?
There are definitely risks for that. For example, similar to a Taliban takeover, there's still fears of a Salafist, very restrictive Sharia law governance of Syria. However, there's a bit of a difference here, and I think that it's the fact that Syria is still split among major factions and major disagreements, and if one group attempted to impose such things, it would have major issues with huge portions of the population as far as forcing that upon the rest of the population. And as of right now, it doesn't appear that HTS is going, they appear a lot more moderate, though we'll just have to wait and see.
Do you think not post 1990s Afghan civil war, but pre-1990, do you think there could be any similarities there?
As in like Soviet occupation of Afghanistan?
Yeah, as in the organization of Mujahideen style troops and factions and militias in the country.
There definitely is somewhat of a parallel, especially with there are some international jihadist organizations in support of the rebels. However, right now, for the most part, it's mostly a Syrian affair, mostly Syrians dealing with the governance of Syria, and I think it's just a little bit different. I'd say that what would be a little bit more likely to happen if something like that was to happen would be something more like after the Ba'athist Party in Iraq fell, after the invasion of Iraq in 2003. You could possibly see a bit more of that, but as of right now, it's still very hard to tell as to what.
And do you think that the self-portrayal of the HTS as being more moderate, do you think that's a credible portrayal, or we just don't have enough information
It's
yet?
hard to tell, but based upon, especially the past 4 years in Idlib province as to how it was governed, it definitely had aspects of like Sharia law and all that, but it was a lot more moderate than other groups. And specifically, one thing that they emphasized was at least attempting to appear to have protection of minorities. For example, uniquely, protecting like the Druze minority in reopening churches in Idlib province and such things as that. So it's still hard to tell, but they have a better track record than other groups as far as protecting minorities and being more moderate.
Okay, perfect. Anyone else have any other questions?
All right, I think that's it. Thank you very much, everybody.
Perfect, thank you.